But when I think about this great place where we're sitting tonight and all the joy we get from it, and we owe that to the beautiful family who lives here. The Myers are so gracious to allow us to share it with them, and we owe them a great deal for allowing us to be here. Before we were here were the people we call Native Americans, and they were here before we were, of course. And these big trees, some of them are 200 and 300 years old. There's a reason for that. The buffalo bedded down around them because all of the brush was controlled by fires. We stopped that control, so we have problems with brush now. But the Lord used to take care of that till we stopped him. But these trees got to be big because of the buffalo. Buffalo were here because of the grass. The Indian was here because of the buffalo. The cowboy was here because of the grass. He followed the longhorn onto the grass after the buffalo. And the longhorns bedded down around these beautiful live oak trees. I sit at my desk and occasionally glance at a buffalo skull on the wall. It was painted by a Hideout's medicine man. If the ancient skull could talk at all, he might tell me tales of the great grassy seas on the bountiful Panhandle plains, or remember the nights neath the Montana sky, or the cold of the Wind River rains. He might remember a young Cheyenne warrior on a spotted horse, how he could ride, staying abreast of a running fat cow where the lance had left death in its stride. He might remember the hide hunting men and the sound of a buffalo gun and the smell of fresh blood as they died one by one until there was no place to run. The yearly migration of millions of beasts made it look like the land was alive. The wolves took the weak ones. The winter took some. The Indian took enough to survive. The Indian believed the buffalo was his brother, like the coyote and the eagle and the wind. He revered him in story, in song, and in dance. Was his larder, his shelter, his friend. The brown hide was used for teepees and robes. The shoulder blade made a good hoe, and a paunch held the food for the winter supply, and a sinew a string for a bow. And then the Sharp's Big 50 rode over the land till only a few head remained, and the ones who were left either died of old age or were captured when they fenced off the range. On the railhead at Dodge, the great stacks of hides were loaded on rail cars, and then, while carcasses rotted and wolves picked the bones, cobblers made boots from the skin. The Comanche went out from the Fort Sill stockade for one final hunt on the plains. They returned to the fort, their destruction complete. They would never hunt buffalo again. The Sioux and the Cheyenne came into the forts. They died from disease by the score, but they still believed that the great massive herds would return to the plains as before. The dream still survives, and in my mind I see the Comanche still lord of the plains. But this ancient old skull, with his dark empty eyes, is the prairie song's saddest refrain.
Wow.
This land has seen conflict for thousands of years. And there was one time in the history of our country when down here we call it the War of Northern Aggression. Up north they call it the War of Southern Rebellion. But it was a conflict between our own people. And there have been several movies and several television shows made about that time in our history. And it's very poignant. And there's one particular melody that I think is one of the most beautiful melodies ever written. And In 1861, a Union officer named Sullivan Ballou, assigned to the Grand Army of the Potomac, rode home to his wife in Smithfield, Rhode Island. On July the 14th, 1861, Dear Sarah, the indications are very strong that we shall move in a few days. Perhaps tomorrow, and lest I should not be able to write to you again, I feel compelled to write a few lines that may fall upon your eyes when I am no more. I have no misgivings about or lack of confidence in the cause in which I am engaged, and my courage neither halts nor falters. I know now how American civilization now leans upon the triumph of our government, and how great a debt we owe to those who went before us through the blood and suffering of the Revolution. I am willing, completely willing, to lay down all my joys in this life to help maintain this government and to pay that debt. Sarah, my love for you is deathless, and seems to bind me with mighty cables that nothing but omnipotence can break. Yet my love of country comes over me like a strong wind and bears me irresistibly with all those chains to the battlefield. The memory of all the blissful moments I've enjoyed with you come crowding over me, and I feel most deeply grateful to God that you and I have enjoyed them for so long. Oh, Sarah, how hard it is for me to give them up and burn to ashes the hopes of future years when, God willing, we may still have lived in love together and seen our boys grow to honorable manhood around us. Sarah, if I do not return, never forget how much I loved you, nor that when my last breath escapes me on the battlefield, it will whisper your name. Forgive my many faults and the many pains I have caused you. How thoughtless, how foolish I have sometimes been. But Sarah, my dear, dear Sarah, if the dead can come back to this earth and flit unseen around those they love, I shall always be with you in the brightest day and darkest night. Always. Always. And when the soft breeze fans your cheek, it shall be my breath with the cool air upon your throbbing temple. It shall be my spirit passing by. Sarah, do not mourn me dead. Think only that I am gone, and wait for me, for we shall meet again. My dearest Sarah, we shall meet again. Captain Sullivan Ballou was killed a week later at the first battle of Bull Run. The first land battle of the Civil War was fought on July 21st, 1861, just 30 miles from Washington, close enough for U.S. senators to witness the battle in person. Southerners called it the Battle of Manassas, after the closest town. Northerners called it Bull Run, after a stream running through the battlefield. Even today, there's a lot of conflict and dissension in our country. But we must stand together, and we must realize that this is the land that God gave us to live in and cherish and protect for future generations. We call her America. She's the greatest land on the face of this earth. Thank you, Lord, and may you continue to bless this great nation called the United States.